Welcome to this edition of The Golden Rule. I'm Barry Schroeder. I'm so glad you're tuning in. And if you're a regular listener, this is going to be a continuation of what I did last week because this is so important. God wants to set people free. People who are bound, people who are addicted, people who are captive, taken captive by the devil, 2 Timothy says, taken captive by the devil at his will. There comes a place where if we play games with the devil long enough, he's got us. And if you don't believe in a devil and any of that stuff, you're a victim. You are a prime candidate for the devil to eat your lunch. And as Andrew Wommack says, and pop the bag. So I want to continue with what we talked about last week because in this account, in Mark chapter 5, we have an account here where Jesus sailed across the Sea of Galilee, and when he got out of the ship, immediately there met him out of the tombs, out of a cemetery, a man with an unclean spirit. Spirit. Every time you see the word spirit in the Bible, it's talking about an invisible personality, a being. This man had an unclean spirit, and he had his dwelling among the tombs. No man could bind him, no, not with chains, because that he had been often bound with chains, and the chains had been plucked asunder by him. In other words, he just snapped them like they're a piece of spaghetti. And the fetters were broken in pieces. Neither could any man tame him. This guy was a menace to the community. He was a problem. And people were afraid of him, but they couldn't do anything about him. And always, night and day, he was in the mountains and in the tombs, crying, cutting himself with stones. Oh, cutting himself. Now he's a cutter. That's nothing new, folks. This stuff about being a cutter is nothing new. The devil is out to kill people. And if he can get you to slit your wrist, he'll get you to slit your wrist. And if you listen to him and don't know how to resist him, he's going to take you out. You don't want that. You want to know how to resist the devil because he's an enemy. He hates you. There's people snuggling up to the devil and playing all kinds of stupid little games thinking it's just funny. Ouija boards are not funny. Witchcraft is not funny. Necromancy is not funny. None of that stuff is funny. Jesus deals with all of it in the Bible. He says, have nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. So here's this guy in the tombs. Nobody could deal with him. But when he saw Jesus afar off, he ran and worshiped him. Never met Jesus in his life. And he cried with a loud voice and he said, "What do I have to do with you, Jesus, you Son of the Most High God? I beg you, don't torment me." This wasn't the man talking. This was the demon inside of him. He knew Jesus. How did he know Jesus? He was with him from the beginning. Demons are fallen angels. Once upon a time, they lived in heaven with God. They knew God. They knew Jesus. They knew all about it. And then for whatever stupid reason, a bunch of them decided to bail and reject God and to follow their leader, Lucifer, who was one of the top 3 ranking angels in all of God's angelic creation. So they followed him. And so now these demons say, "I know who you are." And Jesus said to him, to the spirit, "Come out of the man, you unclean spirit." Anybody know what pornography is? It's an unclean spirit. And there's people watching me right now who are addicted to pornography. You're addicted. You're hooked. You can't do without your fix. You need deliverance. You need to get that unclean spirit out of you, or it'll take you out. It will ruin your life, ruin your marriage. You'll lose your job. You'll do all kinds of things wrong because you are powerless against that spirit unless you have within you the Spirit of the living God. Yeah, that's right. Jesus, by His Spirit, can come into your life and drive all the darkness out of you. But you have to invite Him. You have to want to be free. You have to believe this book. So, Jesus asked this spirit, "What's your name?" And the spirit answered, saying, "My name is Legion, for we are many." Legion is a military term that describes a group of soldiers, many, many, many soldiers. And this demon is now begging Jesus not to send them away out of the country. And there was nearby a great herd of pigs feeding. And all the demons begged Jesus, saying, "Send us into the pigs, that we may enter into them." And immediately Jesus gave them permission, and the unclean spirit went out of the man and entered into the pigs, and the herd of pigs ran violently down a steep place into the sea. There were about 2,000, and they all drowned in the sea. 2,000 pigs. And they that fed the pigs ran to the city and told the people what had happened, and they were out to see what it was that was done. And they came to Jesus, and they saw him that was possessed with the devil and had this legion of demons on the inside of him. He was sitting. Remember what he was like before? He couldn't sit still. He was pacing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Couldn't sit still. And he was clothed. What was he before? Naked. A streaker. And in his right mind. In his right mind. What was he before? Crazy. He was a lunatic. He was nuts. And they were afraid. And they that saw it told them how it happened to him that was possessed with the devil, and also concerning the pigs. And then they began to beg Jesus to depart from their coast. Now, wouldn't you think that after this guy who's been driving the whole town crazy with his antics, wouldn't you think that now that he's perfectly normal, that the people would be so excited? No. Instead, they want to get rid of Jesus. They could have cared less about this guy. All they were concerned about was, our living has just been drowned in the sea. This Jesus guy sent the devils into pigs. Can an animal be possessed with a demon spirit? Well, I just read it to you. And when Jesus was come into the ship, the man that had been possessed with the devil begged him that he might go with him. But Jesus wouldn't allow him. But he said to him, "Go home to your friends and tell them the great things that the Lord has done for you and has had compassion on you." That's what this is all about, folks. It's a testimony. When God does something good for you, you talk about it. You tell other people about it because you are so blessed and you are so thankful to God. You know, I had a woman come to me one time when I was in the Air Force, and I'd never met her. She worked for me, but we had a lot of people, and I didn't know her personally. But she came to my office and she said, "Major Schroeder, I've just been told I have cancer. I've got a growth in my belly the size of a grapefruit. And 3 months ago, it was a golf ball size. And the doctor said, if it doesn't grow, we're not going to mess with it. But if we'll just observe it. So now it's grown to grapefruit size. So they're going to operate. Would you pray for me? I said, sure. And so she turned around and walked away. I said, hey, where are you going? She says, what? I said, didn't you ask me to pray for you? She says, here? Now? Yeah, here, now. So I prayed for her then, met with her later, explained a little bit to her about scripture, about healing, about deliverance, about miracles and all that kind of thing. She went and had the surgery, and I didn't see her for a couple of weeks. And finally I looked her up. I said, hey, how'd the surgery go? She says, well, you know, it was a strange thing. They cut me open and they couldn't find anything. And then she said, it must be there was never any cancer there. I said, now wait a minute, lady. You had 2 doctors confirm the X-ray report that you had a growth in your abdomen. They knew it was there. They cut you open to get rid of it. And now you're saying that was never there? No, you asked God for a miracle. And God gave you a miracle. He removed the cancer from your body. That's what you asked for, isn't it? Well, yeah, but maybe it was never there. I said, don't you dare do that. Don't you dare deny that God gave you a miracle. Because if you do, you're asking for more trouble. Instead, you go testify. Tell people, once upon a time, I had a tumor on the inside of me, and I asked for prayer, and God healed me. And she says, you know, the doctors were also surprised at the fact that I didn't need a transfusion. They cut me open, but I didn't need a transfusion. I said, you got a double miracle, lady, and you need to thank God for it. What have you experienced in your life where God has done something for you and you've never told anybody? I was talking to a woman one day about angels. And she was a 65-year-old woman. And she says, I saw an angel. You did. Tell me about it. She says, when I was 5 years old, I was misbehaving. My mother sent me into my bedroom. And I was lying in bed. And all of a sudden I opened my eyes and looked at the foot of the bed. And there was an angel standing there with his arms crossed, just looking at me. He never said a word, just looked at me. And she says, you're the first one I've ever told. I said, 60 years ago? And you never told anybody that you'd seen an angel? She says, no. I said, why not? Because I didn't think anybody would believe me. You're the first person I've met in 60 years that I thought I could tell, and they would believe what I'm telling them. I said, oh yeah, I believe. And those of you who are watching me right now, you've had miraculous encounters with God. God has visited you in all kinds of different ways. You've had dreams. You've had visions. You may have even had a personal visitation from an angel. But you're afraid to tell anybody. Why are you afraid? Because people won't believe you. They'll think you're crazy. That's what happens. When you talk about God like I'm talking about God right now, and people who don't believe any of this stuff say, yeah, well, he's mentally deranged. We better wrap him up in a straitjacket and send him off to the loony bin because he's hearing voices. He's seeing things. Folks, this book is full of visions of angels, dreams of angels, visitations of angels. The whole book is based in large part on angelic activity. And yet today, if you dare to suggest that there is such a thing as an angel or a devil or demons or evil spirits, people look at you like you're Looney Tunes. And they have that prerogative, don't they? So do you, by the way. You can believe this book or reject it. And that's what's happening every single day. People are rejecting it or they're believing it. And when they believe it, they're having a life that is radically changed. They're no longer uptight. They're no longer angry. They're no longer jealous. They're no longer depressed. Instead, they're happy. They're peaceful. No more pills. No more sleepless nights. They're at peace because they've found God and they've given their lives to Him, and He has responded with His presence in their life. There's other people who hear the same story and they reject it. Say, I don't believe any of that stuff. And they go on in their misery because they reject the one who not only has the answers, who is the answer. Jesus says the devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I am come that I might give you life, and life more abundantly. What more can I say? We'll find out next week when we come back for another edition of The Golden Rule. I hope you'll come back and watch it again, because it's going to be good. And you're getting addicted to this. You're starting to, some of you are starting, your eyes are starting to open. You're saying, you know, I don't believe what he's saying, but at the same time, why don't I? It makes sense. Other people have had the same kind of experiences, so there must be something to it. It must be real. It is real. The spirit world is more real than the physical world in which we live. And people don't know how to explain it because they don't believe it. But once you believe it, it changes everything in your life. The devil no longer runs roughshod over you. You send him fleeing. That's what James says. Humble yourself before the mighty hand of God. He'll exalt you in due time. Submit yourself to God. Resist the devil and he'll flee from you. So start resisting the devil who's real. And you got to start by believing that he's there and he's an enemy and he hates you. Hates you. Goodbye. See you next week.